Hey guys, it's Sam, and this is my spoiler-free review of the 5th season by N.K. Jemison. This is the first book in the Broken Earth trilogy, which is an adult fantasy trilogy that takes place in a world that is constantly having kind of apocalypses, for lack of a better term. The world almost kind of ends and goes into seasons every so often, sometimes hundreds of years, sometimes thousands of years between, sometimes they're longer seasons, sometimes they're shorter, but they are catastrophic events where most of the population is wiped out. And this book really focuses around the fact that there's a largely oppressed group in society, which are the magic users of this society. And the magic here is this kind of earth magic where the magic users can kind of control things about the earth. And it's a little more like complex kind of, but it's kind of, they can control seismic waves and earthquakes, and all of this stuff is kind of wrapped into their magic. But they are the oppressed group in this entire nation, continent, culture. And at the very beginning of the book, one of these seasons kind of takes off, a catastrophic event happens, and this might be the final of the seasons because this is a world-ending, for real season, and everything kind of takes off from there. This is a book that I've been meaning to read for a very long time. I have heard nothing but amazing things about it, and actually the second book in the series, The Obelisk Gate, is nominated for the BookTube SFF Awards. If you haven't heard me talking about that previously, I will link my video up here. But I wanted to get to this one definitely because the read-along for that one is coming up later on in the year, and I wanted to see what all the fuss is about finally, and here we are. First off, I'm going to talk about the world building. This is one of those books that really throws you in deep and expects you to swim from the get-go, so it's a little hard to kind of get into. Everything is a little bit confusing, you're not really sure what's going on. The magic system isn't one that even quite yet I fully understand. It's definitely more of an abstract magic system. It has rules, but it feels very different, and it almost has this like visual quality to it because when the people use magic, you kind of follow them and it's like an out-of-body experience. So it's very different from other magic systems that I've experienced in the past. It's hard to kind of wrap your mind around the rules of the magic or even some of the terms that are used. There's a giant glossary in the back of this book which helps with some of the terminology, but just the terms that are used are new, and the historical events that are like referenced and stuff, you don't get a ton of explanation because the characters that you're following are characters that are familiar with the world. So it's not as though they're getting things explained to them. They already know what's going on, and they're not going to stop to explain to the reader what's happening, you know? Which I'm okay with those kind of world building techniques and stuff. It definitely makes the world feel like it exists outside of this story and that you've just been thrown into it, and I really like worlds like that, but it does take a little while to get used to. So going into this, if you're going to read this book, expect that. Next I'm going to talk about the characters. The characters in here are ones that I grew to really care about throughout the story. There are 3 different perspectives that are happening. The first is of a woman who at the very beginning of the story, and in the synopsis I believe, it talks about her child being killed, and she is one of these magic users, and she is going on this kind of vengeance quest to track down her husband who she believed killed her child, and to find her other child that she believed her husband took. And then we have a girl who is being taken to the center of the magic users. Again, like I said, these magic users are the oppressed group, so they are taken basically as slaves, and it's a very, if you guys are familiar with Dragon Age, it's a very Templar mage kind of system going on here, and so they are taken and kind of controlled and taught, taught things. So she is experiencing that, and then we have a kind of young adult girl, I think she's in her mid-20s, who is part of this system and has been trained and everything, and she is going on a mission. So we have these perspectives that we're following, and I adored all of them. There were some that I enjoyed more than others at times, but ultimately all of them are amazing. And there are so many fascinating side characters as well. One thing that N.K. Jemison is known for is diversity within her novels. So first off, almost all the characters in here are people of color, which is a new thing that I don't see a ton of in a lot of fantasy. Fantasy's getting better, but fantasy is historically known for being very white and very male. And this is a story that focuses around mostly women. Although there are male characters, it's mostly women in this story and mostly people of color. Also, we have some side characters who are transgender. We have a number of different characters that fall on the LGBTQ+ spectrum, and we do have some polyamorous relationships. And all these things are handled really well in my opinion. They aren't thrown in there for any kind of tokenism or anything. It just flows and it feels right, and it's beautiful because, like I said, the poly relationship in here gives me feelings. Also, the character development we get to see with these characters throughout the story is amazing, watching things unfold for them. And by the end is the character arc. They're so good. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so ready for the second book. Lastly, I'm gonna talk about the plot. Like I said in the beginning with the world building, you do get kind of just thrown in and you're not really sure what's happening, and it took me, I think, until about 270 pages in or so to really start connecting to the story, get with the flow. The writing is gorgeous, the flow and the pacing of that is just beautiful, but again, it just took me a while to really get connected to the characters and the story and what exactly was happening and how everything kind of connected and stuff, which was good, and I understand why it was done that way, and then by the end you really do get a payoff, but I think the beginning does kind of lack a little bit, and it just takes you a little bit longer to get attached to it. This book does lay a really good foundation, so again, it's one of those foundational first books that I sometimes mention. The second half of the book isn't quite as foundational, but like I said, that first half is really trying to get you familiar with what's going on, and there's so many different elements going on. There's so many different, like, magical things happening and magical beings almost that are just very unique to this particular story, and I really highly enjoyed it. Again, the ending is spectacular and really sets the groundwork for the rest of the series, and I'm very excited to see what happens. I mean, it's basically post-apocalyptic fantasy. The end of the world is happening, and these characters are trying to figure out what to do about that. It's awesome. I gave the 5th season 4 out of 5 stars. So comment down below and let me know what you thought of the 5th season. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye!